Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. It just turned 12 o'clock, so I say we kick things off. Richard, Ian, can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for this ChatTalent exclusive. For those that don't know me, I'm the founder and editor of ChatTalent. Today we're going to hear more about why ClickIQ acquired Recruitment Bot and what that means to both of their customers. I'm delighted to have with me two good friends of ChatTalent, Richard Collins of ClickIQ and Iain Hamilton of Recruitment Bot, and also now of ClickIQ, of course. Yep. This session will take the kind of format of a fireside chat without the fire and with us in different parts of the world. But everybody kind of gets what that format is. I've got a few questions for Richard and Iain, and I also believe we might get a chance to see the combined tech in action if we're lucky. At the end, if we have time, and I can stop them both talking, we'll open up to you guys. We should be done in around 30 minutes, so I think we might as well crack on, Richard and Iain, if you're ready.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. Richard, can you just unmute yourself?
There we go.
Perfect.
Yeah, look at that.
Perfect. So why don't we kick off with you first then, Richard? So what was it that prompted ClickIQ to start looking at the world of chatbots?
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of looking at chatbots as a whole, we started that when we were initially building out a passive candidate targeting product. So effectively, what we'd come from was that our clients, great that advertise on job boards, assistant managers, all that kind of malarkey. But the thing that we found a lot of is, what about those really hard to fill roles? How are we going to attract talent to come into those roles? So we thought about that, and we thought, you know what, let's look at what's out there. And we effectively built an API into Facebook, because Facebook has some really quite incredible targeting ability in terms of identify people. And we thought, okay, well, if we can build that sort of social recruiting ability, we're going to then need some way of taking those people who aren't actively looking for jobs and get some information from them. And the same way that, millennials and blue collar workers and all these guys hate application forms, we knew that people who aren't actively seeking those jobs on job boards aren't sat there with their CV ready to apply. So we thought, okay, well, how are we going to start converting that? Because if we build this product and it works out that the return on investment for client spend is really terrible, no one's going to buy it. So the next step was we started to then look at ways that we could take those people and convert them into applications. And it became pretty obvious that a chatbot was the way to go. And it was a happy occurrence from there that we happened to bump into Iain, really.
Was there anything else you looked at other than chatbots? Or was that a fairly obvious kind of route that you went down?
I think it was one of those. I don't think we actively went out looking for chatbots, but everywhere you go, people talk about chatbots. And by the time I'd seen a couple of people demo, it was pretty obvious that those two products would sit together. So it was then just a case of looking at what technology was out there in the market, what we were going to plug in. So when we initially started those conversations, we weren't actively saying, right, we must buy a company that has a chatbot.
Yeah.
We literally just wanted to partner with someone where we could plug a chatbot into our tech so that we could then convert our clients, applicants much easier in that particular instance of, passive job seekers, really.
Okay, interesting. So what then eventually drew you to a Recruitment Bot? How did you guys start talking?
Yeah, it was a bit of a coincidence, wasn't it, Iain?
Yeah.
So we would both happen to be attending an in-house live event, and I hadn't met Iain before then. And a speaker let the guys down, and they decided instead they would put on a panel discussion, and it was going to be from the audience, myself, Iain, and Richard Hutchinson from Capita. And we went on stage and we did our thing. And I think that what we found at that particular moment is actually, the stuff that we were talking about and the people that we were talking to, and our approach to this sector was very, very similar. and we got on fairly well, I think. And so that was kind of the first step. And then we ended up going to another event where Iain's chatbot was actually being used to kind of host. How would you describe it, Iain? What you were doing at that second session using the chatbot?
Yeah, so it was in-event notifications, telling people when speakers were due to go on stage and what was happening in the event, and then taking post-speaker feedback on the quality of the talks as well.
Nice.
Okay. So it was a really neat kind of solution, and we happened to be on the same table and happened to be doing the chatbot, and we happened to talk about the fact that, you know, we were looking at this particular thing, and then Iain mentioned that he was about to start a fundraising round, and we said, well, we've just completed a fundraising round. Who knew? Is there a deal to be done there? And yeah, we then started sort of having serious conversations thereafter, really.
And I understand those conversations were fairly simple and straightforward, and you got to the point of saying, yeah, let's do this. But then the actual time it took you to announce it was a long period. Why was that?
Yeah, I mean, we put the deal together pretty quick. I don't know, probably 4 weeks, something like that, if that. And to be honest, we agreed it over the phone. I was waiting for a curry, and you know, it was literally like that. So because we knew what we both wanted, and we'd discussed the parameters. So getting the deal in principle was fine. Then you have to do the paperwork. Takes a few more weeks to do that. But then, you know, we are an EIS company, so our investors have invested on the back of that. So to actually complete the deal, we had to get the taxman's sign off, and they're supposed to sign these things off in 45 days. And the reality was, it took, how long did it take you? More than a month. Was it 3 months or more?
I think where it should have taken 45 total days, it took about 65 working days, you know? Wow. Ridiculous.
Which is crazy. And, you know, we really, it was quite an interesting time, a good time in terms of it allowed us to, you know, because we'd signed the deal, so we knew the deal was going to go ahead. You know, we started to then work together to actually plug the chatbot into the system anyway. So in terms of that integration, but I really felt for Iain, because at the end of the day, until the deal is completed, you know, who knows what's going to happen? And the thing just dragged on, and we heard nothing, and then we got put off, and you know, and then just one day a letter rocked up and saying, yeah, that's great, go ahead. And that was it. Who knew?
The wonders of modern bureaucracy, eh? Because when I met you guys at an in-house event as well, didn't I? And I somehow cottoned on. I kind of joined the dots. And I'd like to say it's because I'm incredibly insightful. But I just think the kind of stars aligned and something just clicked. And I was like, you guys, is there something happening?
Clearly, it was the Manchester in-house live thing, wasn't it?
That's right.
And I guess our LinkedIns were increasingly mutual love was being shown. And you going to put 2 and 2 together, and hence why we wanted you to sort of host this particular session, Alan, for your Sherlock-like abilities.
Call me Gordon Gecko. I know all the deals that are happening. So we know why you're here and how you've got here and the story behind that. I think the vast majority of people on here who have come along for this are going to be mildly interested in that bit, but actually they're going to be much more interested in what it means for them as customers or potential customers, and for recruitment marketing generally. So how are you positioning it, Richard? How's it going to change their world? Yeah, I mean, effectively, you know, everyone talks about automation throughout the process, and the reality is automation can do a lot of it. So when you look at the top of the recruitment funnel, you know, you can certainly automate a lot of that, you know, process in terms of managing, optimizing ads, making sure spend's going the right place, all that kind of stuff. And then we gradually move down the funnel, and as we do so, you know, you want a more personalized experience as you go through that. And obviously, traditionally, we use flat application forms, which we all know is terrible. So, you know, the idea of then bringing people into a chatbot where you can start to have that interaction, because to me, a chatbot is a smart, interactive, dynamic application form. It's effectively what it is. I know it can do more than that, and Ian's going, oh, no. It's far more than that. But effectively, that's the way that we see it. So that if we can seamlessly plug the things together, I mean, what it gives our client, I mean, there's time saving for sure. There's the ability to be there 24/7, give extra information, blah, blah, blah.
I think from us, because we're so data driven, the most important thing is the return on the investment. So, you effectively triple your return on investment on the basis that conversion rate is 3 times higher, and, your brand experience is so much better, and so on and so forth. So from our client perspective, they benefit from that seamless link from sticking a job out there all the way through to the application. And, the stuff that we couldn't do previously with regard to filtering out certain things, the chatbot is able to do that very easily. And I think that adds a lot of value to the process. What we're not trying to do, though, is try and tread all over the ATSs in here, because what we're trying to do is then funnel that application through to the existing application pathways that people would normally go through.
Okay, that makes sense. Anything you want to add to that, Iain?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of use cases for chatbots, but Richard's right. It's about getting the information in the nicest way possible, making that conversion point as easy as possible. And then if you can, and if you want to in the background, add in a lot of engagement and build a lot of affinity with a brand through the post-engagement or post-application engagement process. It's really nice stuff. Right the way down to, we've been using chatbots to do competitions at events. We've got another one coming up in the near future. We did a vote your best job. We'll not release the other one's name. But it's really cool. We were doing some building and testing in it yesterday. That's pretty funky. So it is. So where a lot of the use cases is conversion and getting those details, there's an awful lot more can be done to gain affinity and gain a positive feeling from a candidate through the process.
Have you actually ran the ClickIQ and Recruitment Bot piece for a customer yet? Are you at that point?
Yep. So we've done it for a couple. One's a recruitment agency, because we wanted to sort of test it, and they were happy to be guinea pigs. But actually what we've done is we've got a client of ours called Gap Hire, and Gap Hire, they're UK's largest independent equipment hire company. So they employ about a couple of thousand people, basically. And it's one of Iain's clients, actually. So it's actually worked backwards. And what we've actually done, and they're happy for us to kind of demo it today. Well, just kind of do a run through of what that process looks like. So from a job coming into our system, being managed through the system, being allocated through to a campaign, to dynamically creating a Facebook ad based around their corporate branding and a job description, the targeting set that it's delivering in, creating that advert, sticking it out there, and then the chatbot being able to actually then take that application and look all the way through. So we can actually talk you through that. Hopefully it will work, but I'm sure it will. So that's kind of what we've got today, and we thought that might be quite a nice way to show people how the thing actually works in practice, because it's all very well talking about this stuff, but I went to a thing yesterday and there's much talk of vaporware, and everyone's always making promises about what the tech does, but in reality it actually can't. So I think, just to demonstrate how the thing works, what I would say is that we are looking to integrate it much further, because the thing about chatbots is there's different flavors, as I'm sure Iain will tell you, and it's about picking the right tool for the job. And what we wanted to do is demonstrate in a simple basis how the system can dynamically create those Facebook ads, and then you can deal with the application off the back of that. There is much more complex versions, using natural language processing, all this kind of stuff, that you can do as well, and tailor it much more specifically to individual clients.
Why don't we do that then? I'm a very visual person. I think people would like to see it in action. So let's go for it, Richard. Are you ready to do that now?
Let's give it a go, shall we?
Yeah, fingers crossed.
All right. Let me do this. Share screen. I'm just going to go back a step first, if everyone doesn't mind. Right. Can everybody see my screen, gents?
Well, I can.
Well, You're the one that counts, Alan.
Yep, all good.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to effectively try and show you how the system effectively manages a job, all the way from the process will be, I'll log into the dashboard in a second, and effectively what we'll show is how the GAPS ATS upload the job into the actual platform. You'll then be able to see on all the analytics behind that stuff. We'll then go in and look at where the jobs are, and then talk about the system allocating that job to a specific campaign, and then showing on the Facebook, within the Facebook section, how it actually creates that job dynamically into an advert, and then pushes out, and then Iain will take over and show you how it then handles that. Two things are slightly disjointed just because of the nature of showing different things on different places, but hopefully you'll get the general idea of it. So,
perfect.
In terms of logging in, I'll let me log in and use this screen here. It's already open. So this is our landing screen. So this just shows, you can see it's specifically for GAP. So this would be where they normally would log into the system. And the system shows all the data analytics in terms of what all their jobs are doing, what their campaigns are doing, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see things like spend, you can see responses, applications, cost per click, cost per application, activity over time, media spend, et cetera. So you got a ton of data here. But effectively, really, the next step is that, you know, they've got their jobs, they've been uploaded from the ATS, and they come into the system. So they can very easily then see all the jobs, you know, how they're performing in terms of clicks, applications, spend, all that kind of stuff. So normally what a client would do is they say, right, okay, certain types of jobs, it might not be performing for whatever reason. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a campaign around that particular job. And I think GAP are interesting because, you know, they are dealing with drivers and blue-collar workers who don't sit all day at a desk, at a computer. So, you know, being able to target them and get them to respond requires a different approach. And hence something like Facebook, where, you know, they're going to be on their mobile, it is a good way to do that. So having identified the roles that they are particularly interested in, that they want to use to promote, they would create a campaign around that. And what we've done is we've set up a specific campaign so that we can show this more easily. Normally what would happen is that the client would go in, they would set, you know, what type of jobs do I want to go into this particular campaign. The system would automatically allocate those jobs to the campaign. You would then tell the system, you know, the goals of how many applications, and for this particular example, we've just set it to maximum number of applications possible. You set a budget of how much you want to spend on a job level, so you can set how much you spend either on job boards or social, and there's, you know, sliders and all this kind of stuff. But the actual Facebook bit that we're talking about today comes within our rules engine. So our rules engine, effectively, it allows people to make sure that a job is only advertised when it needs to be advertised. So, for example, I don't know, if a job has less than 5 responses after 5 days, then I want to create a Facebook campaign, because in reality, if you're targeting passive job seekers, they are going to be more expensive than active job seekers on job boards generally. So you create your rules out of it. You then go into your Facebook, and this is where the good stuff starts. So effectively what the system does is it takes a job that's been allocated to that campaign. It then merges it with a logo or any kind of creative. We've just done this for a very simplistic one where, you know, you just got a logo, but it effectively merges that corporate branding with the client's job. You then, there's a couple of things that you can do here. So you can set budgets and cost per clicks and all that kind of stuff. You then tell the system who you want to target with that particular job. So this is a direct API into Facebook, and you can do things like any particular location, any interest, and there's all kinds of stuff in here in terms of the targeting people, education, what they studied, any particular employers, job titles, industries, etc. You hit validate, and Facebook tells us how many people their actual advert would reach. So once we've got that all set up and saved, what the system then does, and I've got another tab open just to show this quickly, the system then takes that particular job and then it merges it with the data within the within the job description. So depending on how it's set up, I mean, at this point, they've got some words around it. Normally it would say, you know, job title, location, how much money it is, that kind of stuff. And then it's repeated there. And then if somebody were to click on that advert, that's when it goes over to Iain's piece. So this actual job appears within the news feed of the individuals that we are trying to target on Facebook. And I think it's really important here to separate this from Facebook jobs, which is frankly terrible, because there's just no targeting in there really at all. It also allows people to comment, to share it with other people. The whole thing gets resized depending on where they're seeing it, for example. So if it appeared on a phone, it might look like that as an interstitial, and so on and so forth. So the whole thing is dynamically generated based on exactly where it's going, where it's being found. And it allows you to do this, as I say, completely automatically. There's no, you know, once you've got this thing set up, it will then run itself. So that's how we sort of produce the advert and push it out. I guess the next stage is we hand over to Iain, who will show you hopefully where that advert then appears and how people would then apply for a job from it.
Just before Iain kicks off, Richard, can I ask a couple of quick questions about Facebook and Facebook for Jobs?
Yeah.
So you mentioned there that Facebook for Jobs is rubbish. Is that because can you sponsor the jobs that you put on there and then start to target them, or is it just completely broken at the moment?
At the moment, I think it's just completely broken. Any jobs, I mean, basically it's aimed at, they say they want to be the sort of LinkedIn of blue collar, small businesses type thing. And at the moment, you can just post jobs into Facebook jobs. But the targeting, you know, if you look at it, it finds your location, fine. But then the type of jobs that you can see are completely untailored based on what you are. I mean, Iain was talking about the competition that we ran through the chatbot at Wreckfest. And the competition was basically, as you know, Alan, it was about, you know, what jobs did Facebook actually recommend. And, you know, some of the matches are just terrible. I mean, our MD here was an adult phone line operator. Mel Hayes at Adecco, who actually won the competition, was a writer for a tarot and I don't know, something or other. But it's just appalling because there isn't that target. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure they will improve it. I'm sure they will fix it. But right now, not great.
Okay, fair enough. So Iain, then over to you. Let's see what happens once the candidate comes into the chatbot.
Okay, cool. So let's see if we can get my phone up on screen for you. Okay, you should be able to see my phone.
We can, yes.
Okay, cool. So we are on Facebook. We're on the Facebook timeline, just the normal screen that it loads up on. In this case, we have shared a demo version of the ad. So directly beneath the second post, we're coming across the exact ad that Richard had on the ClickIQ platform. So within this, we've described a bit about the job, why you would want to apply for it. And in real time, we click once on the phone and it comes up with would you like to learn more about this role? A simple click of a yes brings you in to the role, allows you to read about what it is, where it is. You can click the button, view the full job description, run through that. You can decide you want to ask some questions about the role. So for example, we've got a whole knowledge base behind Gaps Careers. So something like, do you provide a company car? We'll go away, search the knowledge base, and deliver back the question. What's the salary? Don't have specific salaries for some of the jobs, so it comes back and gives more of a placeholder around how salaries are negotiable. What's the hours? And you can literally ask these questions in any number of different ways. The fitter jobs are depot jobs, so they work in the depots for Gap. So you can see here we've actually brought back a depot-related answer rather than an office-related answer. So it kind of does everything that you would want it to do in answering questions you might have about a role. And there's about 140 different questions in there that are picked up by thousands of different natural language strings. So do you want to ask any further questions? No. Brings us back through and allows us to just jump straight into applying for the role. Now, in this instance, we're going to take a couple of brief details. I'm preempting the questions.
You'd almost think you knew what it was going to come up next, Iain.
Yeah, you would think, wouldn't you? These questions are completely dynamic. So we build out the question strings based upon the job role. So, for example, if you were applying for a depot role, you'd be asked a different set of questions from an office role. In this instance, we'll ask for my phone number. Typical guy, can't type and talk at the same time. Gonna ask me, can you work in a depot? Just an example of a depot question more than anything.
So you're moving now from collecting information to actually doing a bit of pre-screening as well?
Yeah, so we're not going to run through any more pre-screening than that just because of the limited time we'll have on the call. Have you got your CV handy? We click no here. We go through a series of 3 more questions to gain enough information to capture that person as a lead and deliver these questions within a PDF as the application. Or, of course, we can upload a CV, like a more typical application process, where we jump in, we take their GDPR opt-in. We take the GDPR opt-in at that stage because that's the first time we actually take any data from Facebook onto our system. We upload a full CV using normal iPhone functionality. And you see the blue progress bar progressing along the top, thanks us, and says thanks for applying, you're a dude. Right? So you can just see
what happens if it's not a dude, Iain?
It's a non-gender specific dude. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Right. So the next thing is we're not going to demo it here, but day 1, day 3, day 7, there's receive a sequence of messages. Day 1 will be a nice employer branding video specific to the job they've applied for. Day 3 will be a day in the life of story specific to the job they've applied for. Day 7 will be collecting feedback on their experience of the interview process. And of course, they can come back at any time and just restart the chatbot, have the chatbot come back in and start to ask more questions, search for more jobs, do all sorts of different stuff in natural language.
Excellent. Okay. And does it remember then that particular person, when they're coming back and saying hi, can it remember that they've applied in the past?
It does remember that they've applied in the past. We're careful about how much we tie that together, because there's a stage where you tie that together too closely and you become to a higher level of GDPR compliance.
Right, yeah.
Whereas we like to keep the GDPR compliance as simple as possible. For example, when we take an application, we transfer that directly into the client's ATS, and then we remove that application information from our systems so that we don't build up a massive database of personal details and have to jump through all the various hoops and rings for GDPR.
Fine. So you're acting as a mechanism to transport that information rather than holding it in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly. We want one version of the truth, and that's the client's ATS and their ATS reporting process. Okay. We've just applied for a job without ever leaving Facebook Messenger. Pretty cool.
Excellent. So questions that are coming in, actually, we might as well start looking at some of these. As part of that workflow, when a candidate first drops into Recruitment Bot and starts to look at a role, can you present more rich content about the role rather than just a job description? Could you have a video explainer, some kind of animated piece, or something along those lines?
Yeah, sure. We've got a chatbot in development at the minute for search consultancy. They do a lot of RPO work with a couple of clients, and we are developing a campaign-specific area in the chatbot for them that will show employer brand videos, will show day in the life videos, day in the life of blogs, and will actually calculate how long it will take you to get to work at 8 o'clock on a Monday morning.
Right, nice. Okay, excellent. And what if somebody has a fairly robust application process. Doesn't necessarily need a CV, but they've got a quite lengthy application form at the moment. I know my general advice would be stop using a lengthy application form. But if they're set on that for some reason, maybe compliance, or maybe legal reasons, whatever it might be, how many questions can you build into that recruitment bot?
So I'll start with saying I agree with you. An application should be a conversion point. Make that conversion point as easy as possible. Then capture the additional information in the future, and we can automate that for you with the bot. Having said that, we can make those apply sequences as dynamic as required and as long as required.
Okay, excellent. And somebody just asked here, does it only work in Facebook Messenger, or can you use a variety of different messenger tools?
8 different channels currently, including your website, SMS, Facebook Messenger, Kik, Viber, Slack, and once the WhatsApp API is fully open to us, and we've done a wee bit of building around that, we'll be delivering through WhatsApp as well.
Okay. So one of the reasons that we liked Iain's solution was that within the system, you know, it will be able to dynamically create the code on a client level, so that all the client has to do is take that code from the platform, pop it in wherever they want it, and it's immediate kind of rollout. If you are doing a more complicated implementation, you know, in terms of, you know, much more personalized, obviously you're going to need to put more information in. But in terms of that delivery of the chatbot to then take the people through the application process, it is literally just a piece of code. It will be dynamically created from the system that will allow all our clients to add that very quickly indeed.
Yep.
Excellent. Perfect. I've just realised I completely lost track of time. We've actually gone past 1:30, and we did promise people would be down to half an hour. I think we've flown through things at a rapid rate of knots. We've got the vast majority of people still on here. Are you guys all right for another 5 minutes if people have got questions?
Yep.
Okay, guys. So audience, have you got any questions that you'd like to ask?
Early results for the customer. Iain, tell people about conversion rates, because this is the thing that really blew my mind, I think, when we first started talking.
Okay, so I'm going to pull the figures out of my head. I'm going to then deliver the actual case study. The figures might be slightly different because my head doesn't always remember the exact figure, but £200 of Facebook advertising for an electricians company in Aberdeen delivered just over 200 individual people into a chatbot, 350 odd conversations, 20,000 messages back and forth over the course of a month, 169 applications out of that, with 135 of those pre-qualified as right for the role when they applied through the screening. Now, the biggest thing for me there is to get 135 pre-qualified candidates. In the past, I know for a fact that I have to screen over 2,000 CVs.
Yeah, I think I would like to manage expectations here, because you know, I think those hyper-targeted campaigns are able to deliver some incredible results. But equally, if you're thinking about more general stuff, then you know, the metrics can vary quite a bit. I know Theo's asked about highly specialized jobs, and you know what? One of the really cool things is that by doing this stuff, that some of the targeting that's in Facebook is completely mind-blowing. We have a client, it's only a small recruitment client, and they recruit people in fire safety. Now, believe it or not, you can target on an interest level fire safety on Facebook. I mean, it is absolutely, in fact, William's here. You know, it is incredible. So I just think it's amazing that you can see that level of detail. I mean, when you advertise a job on a job board, yes, you get active users and people have actually searched for that type of job. So in theory, you get good targeting there by default anyway. But some of the stuff in terms of being able to reach those people, I don't think there's any other way of doing it. And I think when you combine that with a chatbot to then be able to take that application from them without them needing to be sat down at a computer, I think it changes the game for a lot of people. One of the key reasons for us wanting to do this is we work with quite a lot of social care, nursing type clients, people like Anchor Trust. And, you know, the example is always the people they want to attract are invariably having a bad day. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. They've had a terrible shift. They're on their mobile. They're on Facebook. That's when we want to reach them. And actually, you can target registered nurses as one of the Facebook targeting criteria. So how do you then take that person and turn them into an applicant? And if you're going down a typical ATS flat 25-page application form, it's just not going to happen. And you'll have this tiny, minute percentage of conversion. Whereas when you look at a chatbot, 40 and 60% conversion rates are not unusual.
So if you get your targeting right and you're hitting the right people, are there any differences between the type of individuals you're targeting and how likely they are to actually jump on and engage with a chatbot? So if you've got somebody maybe, dare I say it, the younger generation, maybe more comfortable with a chatbot, are people at the kind of upper end of careers or white collar or later in career, are they less likely to want to engage with a chatbot, or are the statistics showing similarities?
Statistics show similarity. So the original people that we were targeting were predominantly people that had worked offshore in the North Sea, where, let's be as unpolitically correct as we need to be here, generally white males 50 plus.
Yeah, okay.
That's where we were getting the high conversion rate. Not that we were targeting based upon those, but that's the demographic that typically kind of arrived through. The idea that you're targeting a very specific job advert to people that will likely be interested in it, and you only pay when people click on that, and then they are interested in the conversation whenever they go into Messenger, means that it converts at a very high rate naturally.
So if you get your targeting right, people are going to click on it because it's of interest to them, in theory. If they click on it, then they're in the chatbot and it's kicking things off and you're away.
Yep.
I think it's good to mention actually what Iain said. We actually have taken out from the platform the ability to target based on age and sex, because at the end of the day, it's only going to get clients in trouble if they try and do that stuff. So we make sure that we don't discriminate. So just to kind of re-emphasize that.
Plus, Facebook don't allow you to do it.
Yeah, and certainly one of the other things is that there are certain demographics and certain sectors that I think this lends itself to. Early careers, clearly. Hospitality, clearly, retail, and social care, and that those type of industries and levels are ones in which they just don't see and don't understand why they have to fill in these horrible static application forms. So anything that we can do, and at the end of the day, we're in an economy where there's it is a tight economy. So trying to attract talent is not an easy thing, and you've got a lot of people competing for it. So anything that you can do to give you an advantage and an edge, and to get more for your money, it has to be a good thing. And I think by putting the two things together, hopefully we've come up with quite a neat solution.
Certainly sounds like it. I am going to call time now, guys. Thank you very much for your time. Iain, Richard, really appreciate it. Everybody who's dialed in, particularly those who have clung on for the extra 7 minutes or so that we've overrun by. Clearly, this has been of interest to you guys. We'll follow up after the call. Richard and the ClickIQ team will follow up with some information about how this will work and how you can find out more information. And I'll also follow up on behalf of ChatTalent as well. So hopefully you'll have enough, but not too much, to go away and have a think about this and see whether it's something you want to have a look at doing yourselves. Cheers, guys.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.